Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I am Rafe. You know what that means. It's Tuesday. Tuesday is Buff Day, and Buff Day is a great day, which makes Tuesday a great day. And one of the reasons it's a great day is because we have the world's greatest listeners. They've made us a global top 10% podcast. Remember, you can reach us at bufnagle.com. Share the love, share the buff, give us a 5-star review, hit the subscribe or the subscribe or the like buttons on your podcast machine. Tell a friend to listen, and you will get a free episode somewhere buried in the show notes. You can find a place to buy me a coffee. We're going to talk about the word competition, and we're going to start with the idea of the Ryder Cup. And for those of you who are golf people, you know what the Ryder Cup is. For those of you who are not golf people, it's a golf thing, all right? The Ryder Cup is an international golf competition setting the USA against Europe. It was originally the USA versus Britain from 1923 to 1971. And then it was the USA versus Great Britain and Ireland from 73 to 77. And now it is the USA versus Europe, 1979 to the present. And I don't know exactly where the boundaries are for Europe, but it's in the charter somewhere. You can read that if you would like. And I don't know if you have to live there or have residency there or have citizenship there or be born there. I don't know. Anyway, it's the USA versus Europe. And this thing started in the early 1920s and solidified into essentially its present form as the Ryder Cup. In 1927, it is played every 2 years with opposing sides taking turns hosting. So 1 year it'll be somewhere in the US, and next year it'll be somewhere in Europe, and then back and forth. The different sides take turns hosting. There have been some extraordinary events that caused either postponements or cancellations. There were cancellations in 1939. 1941, 1943, 1945. That's a long time. It was like a decade between events there due to the big war. The 2001 event was postponed until 2002 due to the 9/11 attacks in Washington and New York. And what it did then is it put the schedule on every 2 years, but on the even years. And the 2020 event was postponed until 2021 due to the lockdowns, and that put the schedule back on odd numbered years. So it's played every odd numbered year. In early autumn, the 45th playing of the Ryder Cup in 2025 was played on the 26th through the 28th of September in Bethpage, New York, in the U.S. The next Ryder Cup in 2027 will be played in September 17th through the 19th in Adair, County Limerick, Ireland. So if you want to get your tickets, now is the time to do so. I don't know how to do it. I guess RyderCup.com or something like that. But anyway, the competition is a team event played over the course of 3 days, typically a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There are 12 players on each team. A total of 28 different matches are played, and each match is worth 1 point. If a match is tied, then each team gets half a point. The winning team thus needs to get 14.5 points to ensure a win. A 14 final score is considered a tie, and in such a case, the cup would be retained by the previous winner. So if you currently have possession of the cup, if you won it 2 years ago, and we play again, and it turns out to be a 14-14 tie, then you retain the cup. In order to get the cup back, you have to actually win it. You can't just tie. So each match is what's called a match play event in golf. So individuals or teammates compete with the opposing individuals or teammates on each hole. So each hole is a unit of scoring. It's not each shot like most of the golf tournaments you may watch on TV. The winner of the match will be the person or team that wins the most holes. So you will play a hole, and I may get a 5 on a hole, and you may get a 4 on that hole. You would win that hole because 4 is better than 5 when playing golf. Tied holes are not credited to either team. They don't. I mean, it doesn't. You just have to win more holes. Whoever wins more holes, and if you both win the same number of holes, well, then it's considered a tie, and that would be the half-point thing in the Ryder Cup. Now, the first 2 days of this tournament are made up of what are called foursome or four-ball matches. Then the final day is 12 single matches, one-on-one matches. So there are team events in the first 2 days, and the last day is just mano a mano, as they say. A foursome match pits 2 USA teammates against 2 European teammates. And what they do is they alternate shots. So and play only one ball. So player A, let's say it's Adam and Bob are on the USA team, and on the odd number holes, Adam would tee off, and then Bob hits, and then Adam hits, and then Bob hits until the ball's in the hole. And then on the even numbered holes, Bob would tee off, and then Adam hits, and then Bob, and then Adam, and so on. And then the European team is doing a similar thing. And the teammates, like I said, take turns playing a single ball. The ball goes there, and that's the ball, but we just alternate shots. And the winner of the hole is the team with fewer shots, of course. Four-ball, it's called four-ball. A match has each teammate playing his own ball. So all 4 of the players play, but the team that has the player with the best score is the team that wins. So if you and I are playing on one team, and I get a 6 and you get a 3, and the other guys they both get a 4, then we win because you got a 3 and 3 beats 4. And of course, if the low scores are tied, then that hole is a tie. So that's how the team matches are played. And then the individual matches, like I said, are you play each hole as a separate thing, and whoever wins the most holes wins the match. Now, it wasn't always this way. You can go back and read the history of it, of how many matches they used to play. We're going to talk about one match that they played back in the day where they didn't play 28 matches. They played 32 matches, but it's generally this is the procedure. So anyway, the Ryder Cup is this big golf match thing where the only thing you can win, there's the only thing you win is, quite frankly, is bragging rights. There's a cup. It was donated by a guy named Ryder. It's called the Ryder Cup, and the team that wins the overall competition gets the cup. But I guess it probably goes in a trophy case somewhere. It goes on tour or something, probably like the Stanley Cup. But you don't ever get it. I mean, that's it. You don't get the cup. You might get a shirt with your name on it. You might get an endorsement deal for, I don't know, shoes or sandwiches or who knows, something. But there's no money. There's no prize. It's just a great golf event. So the question comes to, why would you play it? Now, in 1969, the U.S. and Great Britain were playing in the 18th Ryder Cup, and it was in England. And the U.S. had won the previous 5 cups and 12 of the previous 13. So the U.S. was on a roll from after the war until, well, for quite a while. It's like 20 years. They won a lot of cups, or actually won the cup. A lot of times it's the same cup. And in 1969, going into the last day of the event, the day with the singles matches, the 2 teams were tied at 8-8. Now, the 8-8 resulted from some matches that were ties and some that were won outright. But like I said, they were tied at 8-8, and there were going to be 8 morning and 8 afternoon matches on the last day. So they were going to play a total of 32 matches total, and the winner would need to have 16 and a half points if you want to win it. 16 points would lead to a tie at 16 all, and the USA would retain the cup. So if Europe wants to get if Britain wants to get the cup back, they need 16 and a half points. And it turns out that that on that last day, the Britons won 5 of the first 8, which put them up by a score of 13-11, and they would need to get 3.5 of the remaining 8 points to recover the cup. The U.S. needed a full 5 to retain. Now, the first 5 matches of the afternoon had the Brits ahead 15-14. Okay, so it was 15-14 after 29 matches, and there were 3 matches left to play. Jean Littler of the U.S. bested Christy O'Connor to pull the match even at 15 all with 2 matches left to play. And then Bill Casper and Brian Huggett tied, putting the score at 15.5 with 1 match to play. And that last match is the topic of this episode, really. On the 17th hole, which is the second to last hole, the penultimate hole, as they say. On the 17th hole, Tony Jacklin, who was a British guy, dropped a 35-foot eagle putt. Okay, so an eagle putt is one where you're 2 shots under par, and 35 feet is a long, long, long way. So he had hit this putt. It was like over 10 meters long, and Jack Nicklaus finished with a birdie, which is only 1 under par, and so therefore Jacklin tied the match at that point. So they're going into the last hole with the score of the match tied up. They'd each won the same number of holes, and the last hole would decide the match between Jacklin and Nicklaus. And it would also then decide the competition, because if Jacklin won, Britain would get 16.5 points and win the cup. If Nicklaus and Jacklin tied, then the overall match would be tied at 16 all, and the Americans would retain the cup. And if Nicklaus won, then if he won the last hole, he would win the match, and the Americans would win the match outright, 16.5 to 15.5. So there's a lot. So here's the final hole. There's just a couple of shots left, and this will decide everything. So the final hole was a par 5, which is a pretty long hole in golf standards. Okay, so when they talk about par, they talk about how many shots you anticipate to get the ball in the hole. A par 3, they anticipate you can hit the ball off the tee box and get it onto the green, and then putt just twice and get the ball into the hole. So one to get it close and then 1 to knock it in. That's 2 putts. So a par 3 is 1 onto the green and a 2 putt. A par 4 is 2 shots onto the green and a 2 putt. And a par 5 is 3 shots onto the green and then a 2 putt. Now, if you can make that first putt, if you get onto the green in regulation, as they say, and you can make that first putt, then you're 1 better than par, and you will get a birdie. If for some reason you can get on the green in less than regulation and then 2 putt, then you can get a birdie that way too. And if you can get on in less than regulation and then 1 putt, wow, you can get like an eagle. Okay, an eagle is a really great score. Okay, it's 2 under par. So both players were on the green in 2 on this final par 5 18th hole. So both of them were going to putt for eagle. Their third shot was going to be a putt for a chance to make it really hard for the other guy. Nicklaus hit his shot first because he was farthest away, and he ran his eagle putt about 5 feet past the hole. And then Jacklin had a chance to win it outright by making his very long putt, and he left his about 2 feet short. It was right on the line, but it was too short. So Nicklaus has a 5 feet. I don't know. 5 feet is a makeable putt. But man, I tell you, when the whole world's watching and this putt's going to decide everything in the future of mankind, that hole looks awfully small and the ball looks really big. But Nicklaus hit he hit his comeback putt right into the hole for a birdie. And that meant essentially the match was over, because Nicklaus had done 4. The best Jacklin could do was tie him at 4. Which means that the best the Brits could do was tie the match, which means the cup would go back to the Americans, or it would stay with the Americans. So Jacklin was looking at this 2-foot birdie putt to tie the hole and the match and the competition. But a miss would mean that Nicklaus would win the hole outright. He would win the match outright, and thus the U.S. would win the competition outright, and they would get the cup. So regardless of what happened with Jacklin hitting this last putt, the U.S. gets the cup. And I guess if you're, I like W's. Okay. I want to get the W. I don't want to get the L. It doesn't really matter to me how you get the W. As long as you're playing within the rules, I guess it's not a problem for me. It turns out that over the 3 days of this tournament, prior to this Jacklin's final putt, the tournament had gotten somewhat, I guess they call it chippy, that the competitors have gotten a little snitty with each other. There was some talking and some, I guess they call it trash talk now, taunting perhaps. And the contest was turning rather acrimonious. So everybody was done at this point, except Nicklaus and Jacklin. And Nicklaus, like I said, he hit his putt. He made his 5-foot putt essentially to give the cup back to the Americans. And as he pulled the ball from the cup, he reached down and he also picked up Jacklin's ball marker, which was on the green there to indicate where his ball is. And that essentially conceded the putt to Jacklin, basically saying, I think you're going to make this putt, so I'm just going to give it to you. And that ensured that these two would tie the match, and the official 18th Ryder Cup would finish all square at 16. It also ensured that, the cup's still going to go back across the pond to the U.S., but it produced a sense of grace that still hangs with Nicklaus today. As Nicklaus shook Jacklin's hand, Nicklaus said to him, "I don't think you would have missed it, but I wasn't going to give you the chance either." So, I have 3 dictionaries that I use often on this show, and one of them is from my early days of my career in the early 90s. One is right after I graduated in 1988, and there's one from long time ago in the dark ages. I found it in a throwaway bin. It was dated 1965, so that dictionary is as old as I am. And I decided I was going to look at the word competition. Competition is one of the words in a whole mess of pages. I don't know, depending on your dictionary, there's going to be tons of them. And these are, I guess, I call them the COM words, C-O-M. It's one of the entries in the COM, and with COM comes col, C-O-L, and C-O-N, and a couple other things we're going to learn here in a second, where the prefix means with, or together, or jointly. And we've said this likely many times on this show. Our go-to example of this is the word compassion, which means to suffer with, as calm is with and passion is suffering. And that may come as a surprise to you if you haven't heard that before. A lot of us think of passion as this heavy duty arrows kinds of thing, but it can be that can be suffering if you get struck with that. And in a general sense, that's what passion means. So we're in Lent now, and after Lent looms Holy Week, and in Holy Week there's the Passion, which is the suffering at the crucifixion, and that's a big thing. Okay, passion is suffering, compassion is suffering with. It's a graceful thing to do. It's a virtuous thing to do. And my 1965 and 1988 dictionaries tell me when to use different forms of this com or col or con prefix. The 65 version says that com, C-O-M, comes before B, before P, or before M, like in commingle. The col, C-O-L version comes before the L sound, like collinear. And the N, con, comes before other sounds like concentrate. Now, the 1988 version goes way into detail on when you use which one. This just blew me away. I figured I just had to share it. I wasn't going to do this, but this was so awesome. I had to share this. The 88 version says that you use col before L. Right? We already knew that, right? And it says you use cor, C-O-R, before the R sound, like in correlation. And the con, C-O-N, N comes before C, D, G, J, N, Q, S, T, or V, or sometimes F, like in conflagration, or at this point, confused. Okay. And you use the CO, without a little consonant there, before the H or a vowel, like cohesion or coalesce. And you use com in the other senses. Okay. Well, and now I had no idea. Okay. I had heard about compassion, and I had heard about competition, and I had heard about confused, and I kind of realized they were all the same, but I never knew that the rules were that complex. All right. And I'm not doing these puns on purpose. I'm starting to realize that these words show up all the time. Compete. Okay. That's where we're getting to. We're going to competition. Compete in my 1993 dictionary is to strive together. In 1998 or 1988, it was to enter into or be in rivalry, to contend or vie. And in 1965, it was to vie with another for a prize. But the Latin, the original Latin, points back to the word competere, which means literally to strive together or to rush at something together. And I think the whole point of endeavors like the Ryder Cup are just to strive together at something like greatness. We use the word compete these days for a lot of sports things, when in reality, the way we play our sports, I'm wondering if we shouldn't use the word conflict, which means to strike together, like in a war or a battle. And all of this is to say that sports, whether it's golf and the Ryder Cup, or golf elsewhere, or youth soccer, or youth football, or youth whatever, or professional sports, or church league softball, or what have you. Sports should be about striving together to build us up as persons. They should allow us to strive together toward the greatness that comes with virtue. That's the essence of sportsmanship, and that is why Nicklaus's concession, his concedere, to yield with, to Jacklin was the right thing to do. No good would have come from him forcing Jacklin to hit the putt. The best outcome from Jacklin would be to not miss and then get the tie that would lead to Nicklaus's and the U.S.'s victory. But a miss would have only served to allow Nicklaus to win the hole and the match and the overall Ryder Cup, which they had won anyway. And at the end of the day, like I said, the cup stayed with the Americans. So I'm sure there was a temptation to force Jacklin to putt. But Nicklaus listened to his better angels and gave us one of the great moments in sports. Both men that day and both teams, and hopefully many around the world, saw the virtue that comes with grace. So many of the sports things I'm seeing now, I see a lot of youth sports, amateur sports, professional sports, like I said, and even church league softball. And I'm thinking, you're competing, but are you striving together, or are you conflicting? And I think I see a lot of competition in the true sense of the word, but I see a lot of it that's misaligned. And I was like, why do you do that? Are you striving to make yourself, what are you striving for? Are you striving for greatness? And the thing is, the great competition will, if you're up against a good opponent, that is to your benefit, because it will push you to greatness as well. If you just let the other guy win, that's not good. If the teams are unevenly matched, that's not good. It is best when you have the two greats going at it each other. And at the end, Nicklaus saw this sort of thing, and he gracefully conceded the putt, because it's not going to do anybody any good to have him win that outright. His graceful gesture sparked a lifetime friendship between these two men. Nicklaus was at the time a Ryder Cup rookie, 29 years old, in his prime. Jacklin was 25, and he was the defending British Open champion. It was called the Open Championship at that time. He would win the U.S. Open the following summer. Grace flowers, but impudence stifles. Choose grace. Here in Lent, We discuss a lot about temptations and giving things up while preparing for Easter. It is not easy to deal with temptation. But remember to think of temptation not as a pull toward sin or to miss the mark, but rather as an opportunity for you to practice virtue. The 1969 Ryder Cup gave us exactly that, and Nicklaus showed us the grace that comes from it. I'll leave you at that. Remember, everybody, seek the good, live virtuously and flourish, and enjoy the adventure of life.
It's going to be a great day.